We agree with the findings in the staff report. We would ask again that the variance to the 5-foot setback standard be granted going forward, except for if the building is replaced. Frankly, I don't know how you could even do it with a new building, because you couldn't get into the side if you put something within 5 feet of those ends of Ethel Street and Hood Street. But would ask that it be, in case we have to put a modular here again next year, you know, I would ask that we don't have to go through that again. Beyond that, just make myself available for questions.
Gentlemen, just jump in.
Okay. What is, with putting the building where it's being located, moving the ADA over, what's that going to do for getting buses around the building? Because they queue up to do, you know, pick up students, and now you're restricting their ability to maneuver.
There's still 28 feet of room in between, because we're taking out the parking stalls on the other side. And so there's still 28 feet of room, which is more than adequate to get the buses through there.
Okay.
I don't think there's a problem there. We just relocated the 2 ADA stalls from, you know, they're just moved from one corner of the building to the other.
Yes, but you took out 3 and only put back 2.
Not ADA, I think there were only 2.
Yes, you look at the picture.
That may be. I'm not.
Can you go back to the pictures?
It's we have more parking and more ADA than is required by code. Anyway, at any rate.
Rick has the.
I'm going to keep.
Rick, can you go back?
Which way do I go here? The aerial photograph? Is
No,
that
keep going.
Yeah, you can see them there.
Yeah, you can see there's 3 ADAs, but there's actually a picture of the front of the building. One more. There.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
You are correct. I would go with
Well,
my.
one's probably van accessible.
Well, it's still 3.
Yeah.
And the ADA parking number of them required is building code, and so typically we don't have criteria for that in our code.
We should.
The building official,
Parking.
upon building permit, and he weighs in during pre-application conferences and such, so the applicants know ahead of time, but we don't typically look at that.
All right, so you have as many as you need, you
Yeah,
believe.
We believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay, so buses are going to still be able to get through.
Allegedly.
Well, if they can't get through a 28-foot hole, they shouldn't be driving. I guess my question is, and this is the same one that the school hears every time they heard when they put the other modulars in, is just 2 classrooms, and you said, well, maybe they're going to come back next year and need 2 more, and maybe 2 more.
No, I didn't say that. I said that if it becomes necessary. Yeah, there's been no discussion of that by the school district. That is my supposition.
Okay, well, it gets back to our continual grousing at the school of, you've got 4 buildings, why do you have to keep expanding modulars? Why don't you just use one of your 4 buildings? DeWitt, King, and, you know, Park, I mean, the inner city is being divested of schools, and I'm pontificating, and it's not relevant to what we're doing, so I'm going to just stop now.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
I do it every now and then.
I know. I've noticed.
What grades are these for? Do you know what they're programmed for? 6th or 7th or 8th?
7th and 8th, I believe, is what they will be doing.
All right.
Tom, do you have anything?
No questions for Rick.
So tell me, 2013, what circumstances have changed that we're back here again asking for the same thing?
Enrollment at the
So
school has
there-
increased.
So what I'm getting at is, you know, some prognostication into the future. Okay, we're going to need one now, or we're going to need one later, or we're just kind of doing this on a case by case. I'm just trying to understand what is necessitating doing this again, and then there's an implied we might do this again. I don't want to waste anybody's money either, so I'm just trying to get in the head and understand.
Well, you have to understand that I am the consultant to them, and I am going with the projects that they have brought to me. The consultant says
Come on
there
up,
could be a
Larry.
possibility that one has to happen again. If it does, even though they're paying me to write variances and they're paying the city to review them, I think it's kind of a waste of time and money when the circumstances are exactly the same. That was my only point. To my knowledge, there is no plan to put more modulars here. What happened was that the enrollment went up. They're very tight on space. They need a couple more classrooms. And school districts, have limited funding available to solve problems. The idea of using other schools, that's a bigger discussion than you can deal with at this kind of level where you're looking at meeting the immediate needs for this school year, staffing an entire new school or something. That's a bigger discussion than we can go with
We
here.
know, unfortunately, we meet at the same time they do. We're trying to get a joint meeting together so we can have an informal discussion with the school board.
That would be a good idea, I think.
I think it's a fabulous idea, but thank
And
you.
perhaps we can talk about fixing some code issues as well while we're there.
No, we're not going to do that right at that time. That's not for the school board to make the decision about. But anyway, no, thank you. Larry, did you want to come up, please?
Good evening, Chairman Griff and Commissioners. I'm Larry Didway, Superintendent for Oregon City Schools. Thanks for welcoming us here tonight. Director of Operations Wes Rogers sends his greetings. Unfortunately, he's unable to attend tonight. He's in Montana due to the death of his mom. So I'm his replacement tonight. But happy to be here, and I really just came to say thank you for your consideration, and we are eager to see this approved hopefully tonight. We're wanting to have our teachers and kids in those classrooms as soon as possible, and we're very hopeful that we can have them settled in those rooms when they return from winter break.
Break. Look. So you've already got 2 teachers hired?
We already have the teachers and the kids in the building.
Where are they at?
They are in rooms that are, one teacher might be in a classroom, but they'll have a prep period, and so they
Okay,
are
so
rotating from
it's the
room to
rotators,
room.
okay, yeah.
It's not ideal.
Yeah, I know. I was the sub for them one day.
Yeah.
Chasing them. Okay, everybody, let's move to the next.
So you had some questions that
Well,
we're not going to trouble Mr. Givens with those because that's beyond his
Yeah,
pay grade.
I guess my big concern is that, that we're going to end up in this rolling modular thing. Like, okay, it's Gardner this year, and next year it's Ogden, and then it's just another year or two until the bonding gets the planning gets done, so we can start to That's my concern about making it a blanket, 5-foot thing. I mean, I understand completely the thing, but that's what a master plan's for. Then we blanketly exclude the 5-foot, and then you do your master plan. So
They do the master plan and then we consider it.
well, as part of the
Part of the approval.
So what? I mean, you've not prognosticated that you need to do changes. What assurances can we get that it just isn't going to be an annual event?
I wouldn't be able to give you any assurance that, as you know, population is something that is not stagnant in any way. We work with Portland State University and the Population Study Center, and they annually complete an update for our population forecasts. And we have, on a 3-year variance, about a 2% variance on what they've actually projected. But that's for the total district. When you begin to peel that onion and start looking, it might look different at different grade levels or in some specific buildings or attendance areas. So for example, while our middle school enrollment right now is within 2% of what was projected, it is not balanced between Ogden and Gardner in the way it had been projected. So that's part of what you're seeing here. And then the other thing I would say is that as a community grows, and while we are not forecasted to have aggressive growth at those grade levels right now, over time, it is very common and really one of the very few tools that we have to expand an existing campus without creating a new cost center, while the population is building to such that you can open up a new or third middle school. And that right now is not, we don't have a date forecasted for that, but you know that will eventually have to happen.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, the potential for the $30,000 if you did option one, do you have an idea of what that would be? Like, would you put trees around the perimeter? Would you change your?
I'm not familiar enough with what the code requirements are to know what we would be applying it to, but what I would say is that we would do an analysis to make sure that we were being the best stewards of public funds possible. So if we could make the improvements with a minimal investment that we were confident would remain even with the renovation of that entire site, that would make sense. Otherwise, it would make more sense to put that off and do it when you're revamping the entire site. So either way.
Thanks.
I don't have any questions. I have some
Okay.
questions for staff, but
And I'll take this opportunity also to share just that we do have a meeting scheduled with the City Commission on December 20th, I believe, between the school board and the City Commission, and we will be talking about these very issues in our enrollment projections.
we still want one. We're not the city commission. We want one with the school board, and I'll say this publicly, I want one.
Therein lies-
I've requested it.
There
You're
you go.
welcome.
You said
Okay.
it. You finally said it.
No, I said it the
Come
last
anytime.
time.
Well, are you not speaking for the commission, or are you speaking for
We had
yourself?
already recommended that 2 meetings ago, and so I'm reiterating.
was sick that day.
Yes. No, you weren't. You were here. I'm reiterating that we would like, and I would like very much to have a meeting with the school board.
All right?
We're in the planning game. They're in the planning game, so the planning people should all be together.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do we have any peoples?
Do we have anybody in the audience? I don't have any more slips for this item. Does anybody would like to testify on this matter? Okay. I think at this point, I won't close the record just yet, because they may want to respond. I have some more questions, Kelly. So would, I'm kind of leaning towards Damon's suggestion of maybe revising the condition regarding the land, even though they proposed it. I'd rather see the equipment, ground equipment screen, but I'd rather see these trees placed elsewhere. I mean, thinking about the larger picture, students deserve to be in a site that looks pleasant, is inviting, and I think the more that we can get them to do some plantings around the school in terms of the parking lot, to me would be reasonable. And I agree with you that putting them there and then the modular building goes out, what happens to the trees, and you know how I feel about trees. I think to correct, I don't believe that the schools are a non-conforming use in this particular zone. Maybe some of the facilities in terms of parking and that sort of thing, that is non-conforming, but the use is not non-conforming itself. So I just want to make that correction on the record, because schools are not, they have non-conforming things. I mean, obviously, you know, that we've got broken parking lot, we've got this that's not working, that's not working, and, you know, there's only so much that can be done. So I would like to see if there's a way that we could maybe revise that and have some of this landscaping that's supposedly going to go around the building.
More
Maybe
generalized.
more generalized and be located elsewhere, with the exception of the screening of the equipment. I don't, you know, people shouldn't have to be looking at that. Is that possible?
One of the functions of the landscaping, one of the standards that it's, I think the reason it's being proposed is building, buffer between the parking lot and the building, which is generally required. And we don't really see it necessarily everywhere on this site, but generally it's a 5-foot buffer of landscaping between the parking lot and the building that's required. And so the applicant, I think, anticipated that and knew about that code requirement and proposed landscaping for that being one of the reasons. And then also for, and I want to correct myself, it's wall-mounted equipment that the trees would be screening. And it is true that the site already meets the overall 15% landscape requirement, as it is.
It's
And
amazing what a
so,
football field will do for you.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I don't think it meets it from the standpoint, it's not a mix of shrubs and whatnot. It's a lot of grass and a bunch of weeds.
as far as the area is concerned, but yes, so the landscaping is kind of there to provide, to meet multiple standards. Is there anything I'm missing, Laura?
Well, I think the trees would be better placed elsewhere.
Yeah.
Instead of by a building that could be removed and then the trees go down, then that, to me, that's a waste of taxpayer money.
That will be removed if they get their
If.
rebuild
Yes.
of the campus.
Perhaps the planning commission can consider retaining the shrubs in that location and just relocating the trees
That's
themselves.
what I was suggesting. I don't have any issue with the shrubs, but
Would-
the trees might be better sited elsewhere.
Would planters would the greenery landscaping in planters meet the
Intent of the code.
Because then you can just stick a forklift on them and move them around to some other location when you rebuild the buildings.
I think it could.
Speak.
You'd want to make sure you had clear findings as to, so that would be a modification because we have the specific requirements. So you'd want to make sure that you have the findings in there to support that
Of
modification.
course,
and
the
this-
other thing is does the school care and they're okay with what they proposed? And if they do, then I'm not going to second
why I
guess
didn't-
them. I
that's
just
why I
didn't
didn't-
want to have extra.
That's why I didn't close.
I just didn't want to have extra costs because of a code when it's okay, we're going to do it anyway.
Mr. Johnson,
Along that
you
line,
need to scoot up and speak into the mic, remember?
along that line of Damon's thinking and Chair Kamish, I would like to get rid of cutting the asphalt out and putting planters and trees in there. Use all that landscaping out around the perimeter in the parking lot area. And I just don't know how well trees and shrubs are going to grow in a
Asphalted.
12-inch trench of asphalt.
Yeah, I would agree.
Forget that whole thing, because the side of the building already has no trees. This picture that we're looking at
Right.
right there has no trees or no shrubs on it anyway.
No, that's because
So
it was built
move them
long, long
all
ago.
away from the building and put them out where they probably have better growing conditions and maybe cheaper planting them out there or for whatever quantity you plant.
Maybe we can revise the condition that the shrubs can be in, should be in, could be in planters.
Could be, if
That could
that's-
be utilized,
agreeable
could be
to that.
utilized elsewhere. Do you want to come back up? You have any, that's why I didn't close, because I wanted to see if you had any comment about that.
Any rebuttal?
Not rebuttal, just,
You're hitting me kind of cold with this.
we just-
I think there are some code issues, as Kelly mentioned, that we would be in violation of if we did not have landscaping next to a parking lot. The trees also, I believe the landscape architect felt they were important to have there because of shading of the classroom, that kind of thing. But it's, we're willing to look at moving them elsewhere, but, we don't want to do it willy-nilly at a planning commission hearing. We want a landscape architect to be involved as before and discuss where it can be moved and whether it makes sense.
would you like us to continue this and then you can come back?
No, we need to get them, unless you want to have school at your house.
No, what we're looking at is something that along the lines of, allowing the same amount of trees to be placed at other locations in the property.
I understand what you're saying, and
In the vicinity.
it does make some sense. I'm just saying that we'd like you to give general direction to staff for consideration of that and let our landscape architect work that out with staff. I
Yeah,
mean,
that-
everybody understands what you're going for, and
That makes sense.
well, That's all I'm going to say.
I just don't, I don't want to see money being wasted to plant some trees, as Vern said, in a 12-foot trench, in an asphalt parking lot where they're not going to really do much. They're going to have a hard time. And we know that a lot of Oregon City doesn't have great soil.
Well, I believe the landscape architect had specifications for replacing the soil and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I'm sure he does.
But then when you do the Gardner rebuild, you have to tear them out because they're right next to where your buildings
To me,
are.
that's wasting money, is
Yeah.
planting trees and then ripping them out, because I don't see the school district or anybody else picking them up and moving them someplace else.
So I guess what I would put as a condition is that the school district and staff work on finding alternative locations for the trees if the school district wishes to do so. So if they say, this is where we want them, this is where we drew them, and we're just too bad, then that's fine. But if they want to look at alternatives, that staff has the option for working with them to find alternative locations. Does that make sense to you and staff? And
It doesn't make sense to me, because what's the point of doing it if they decide they don't want to do it, and then we've made statements and findings about we'd like to see the trees moved elsewhere.
But if the code says this is where there should
They have to
be,
have
and they do
landscaping.
not wish to put, they don't want
We're
to,
just talking about the trees. The shrubs are going to
understand
stay
that.
there.
I understand.
Shrubs are going to stay there,
but,
and they can be in planters.
yeah, well, I'm just saying that.
But if we get it at a point of impasse, couldn't the staff refer it back to us for final determination?
They won't get the
No,
impasse, they'll
no,
work, I have
no.
no doubt about that,
Anyway.
but I just want to put the option out there, and then if they.
Okay, come up with a condition for us, and we'll get back to that, based on what we just talked about. So, thank you, Rick.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want any more rebuttal?
I think I'm done.
Okay, all right, close the public hearing and get back to the commission. Okay, guys,
Well, first off, the first two variances I have no problem with. It's clear the 5-foot setback and the articulation of the buildings are not applicable to this situation. So it gets to the third variation, which is the option 1, option 2 request, and whether or not we're going to require it. As somebody who's been all over that building, went to that school, and then it is just a great big old field, with the exception of the plantings they put around the last modular. So
and I had a problem with that.
I'm not inclined to go with a variant, to approve the variance of the two options. And I think if they go with option 2 and they get their bond passed, then it'll become a moot point because there won't be a building there when option 2 happens. So they can save the money that way too. So that's my point. Where I'm at was whatever we do with the trees around the building, the modular, as a condition, and then leave everything else intact with the 2 typos.
Bob?
Well, I'm only speaking for myself, but I notice there's 2 parallels here, 2 separate political entities, and both of them have plans. Ours is a little bit more definite, and it's a comprehensive plan adopted as policy by the public, being the City Commission and Planning Commission. But you'll note that our comprehensive plan, although it's ordinance, has a tendency to change, and we change in response to the public's needs. Same thing with the school district. They're responding to the need of subdivisions that we approve that increases the population that requires modular schoolrooms. So they're in between a rock and a hard spot, and all they're doing is just responding to the needs that are foisted upon them by decisions that are made by another agency, namely us. I don't have any problem with this application. And I'm not in the business of telling, and I don't think this commission should be in the business of telling the the school district how to spend money. They're at the big boys table. They can spend money any way that they want to. This planning commission, as far as I'm concerned, is not going to make decisions based on how they spend their money. That's up to the public. That's a completely different venue as far as I'm concerned. So I support this application. I think some of the changes that we've talked about here have some valid points, and I respect my colleagues in bringing up and mentioning them, but I don't think it's enough to quell this application and deny it. I'm going to vote for it.
Tom?
Go to Vern next, will you? I'm listening.
Tom?
I pass.
Okay, Vern?
Then I'll come back.
Nope, you had your chance.
Why did you jump all the way down here? I do have something to say.
I'm generally in support of the position, and what our suggestions were, I think can be worked out between the school district and the staff, and I'm happy with the results.
Okay, now I'll say something.
I yield to the floor to Tom.
Damon?
Listening,
Parliamentary procedure allows me to yield, and I do. I yield to Tom.
listening to all of your
Tom's
concerns.
last. He's going to listen to everybody.
I'm done. Go ahead, Tom.
Listening to all of you and your concerns, I understand what you're all saying. I understand about the trees. Sometimes I think we focus a little too much on that building right there, but I agree with what Bob says. The thing that really hit me is, Rick, we don't often agree on some things, but I agree with you on the 5-foot setback, that in our coding, we've got some really bad codes that came along before some of us got here. I disagree with a lot of the coding. I hope sometime in the near future, we'll be meeting with the City Commission and discussing some of those codes, because I find a lot of them just really not conforming to my way of thinking. Anyway, Rick, I agree with it.
Damon?
I already said where I'm at, Dad. If Kelly's got a potential 9th, or would it be a modification of 3?
I think it's a modification of 3.
So we understand your modifications. As you discussed earlier, it's to reword condition of approval number 1 to clearly delineate the pedestrian area, add walkway into condition of approval number 2, amend condition of approval number 6 to add the word barrier, and add a condition of approval number 9. And from my understanding, the addition would say something like the applicant may place the 5 trees proposed on the landscape plan elsewhere on the site, and place,
Subject to review with staff.
and with approval of a landscape architect,
Yeah.
and place the remaining proposed landscaping within a planter.
Could you repeat that? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I can.
Are we ready to make a
Just
motion?
one brief
Go ahead.
correction. You said walkway was in 2. Walkway was part of 1.
So I have 1, 5, 6, and 9.
Yeah.
Walkway. Okay, perfect.
Great.
Okay.
I believe it's, are we removing condition approval number 3?
No, we weren't
No.
removing it.
The trees are what is going to screen the wall-mounted equipment?
If they're deciduous
Believe-
trees, how are they going to screen the wall-mounted equipment?
Well, they'll be small for the first 5 years.
It better not be arborvitae.
We can amend it just to say that the mechanical equipment will be screened,
Screened,
and then the
yes.
Yeah.
applicant can
Yes.
figure out what they want to do.
Okay.
Ready to make.
So I had for the 9th one, staff may approve alternate landscaping that equal or better meets the standards as long as shrubs are included around the building in some form.
In
And
plant.
5 trees may be located anywhere on site. Is your intention to say it has to be planters, or to leave it flexible up to the landscape architect?
I think we just leave it flexible.
Oh, I don't, but that's just me.
I don't want to require planters, is what
Well, we were suggesting that the shrubs could be in planters. That way they could use them
Right,
someplace else when they're no longer needed there.
Absolutely.
Because that way then they don't get dug up and thrown away, which again, to me, is wasting money.
Yeah.
And we'll go back through the staff report and add a modification so that the landscaping in that location can be in a planter.
Can,
And
yes.
that the trees can relocate off-site
Yes.
too.
So
So we'll
that
add the
I would-
findings to support that condition.
Well, I don't want to say anywhere on the site. I think my suggestion would be that the trees be relocated where they would make them meet the standards more than they currently are, so that they would be, someplace that would, if they're in the back 40, well,
Okay.
Well, they still screen from the residential in the back, so
well, there's
they-
not too many residential in the back there.
but there's only 5 trees.
Yes,
so-
but anyway, so I guess I'm going to comment in the fact that I with, it's not that I don't sympathize, but I have a problem conditioning something in the future that we don't know about, that is not part of a master plan. I don't think that that's appropriate for the Planning Commission to be doing that, and I'm just saying Planning Commission in general. If we had some sort of an overall plan, I think we'd have some assurity that something was going to happen and that we could be looking at it. But I don't, as much as I, again, sympathize, looking at it from the planning standpoint, I understand where Rick is coming from, but in terms of the Planning Commission hat, I don't think we can do that. I don't think it's reasonable to condition something in the future that we don't have information about. I'm sort of torn about the third variance because I'm not really a big fan of variances, period, because there's a very high bar, and I think the bar needs to stay high because they are an exception. So we did approve a exception to setback with regard to a fire station, which is also a public institution. This school's already there. I'd say if we were building this some point in the future, it probably could meet those standards, but the way the site is configured and the access to it, I don't know if we'll ever get there. But saying that, the third variance, I'm not comfortable with at all, and I think I concur with staff on that. Again, I'm not sure how we can do that. It's a request. I don't think that the threshold for meeting the 5 criteria are there.
So where are we?
So I would not support VR 1713.
Well, no, it's, if we go with the staff findings, condition approval 8 says they do not approve of the non-variance.
So we're accepting their not approval.
Right.
So if we go with the staff report with, as amended for 1, 3, and 6, and add 9, then they get a variance 1 and 2, but not 3.
3, right.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes. Okay, somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion. I've been trying to for 15 minutes.
Sure.
You can have as much time as you like.
God, there's a lot to read there. I motion that we approve
No,
PC
I
17.
move.
I move.
Not I motion.
I'm making a motion with my hand. I
Yes.
move that we approve PC 17-142, SP 17-127, CU 17-03.
127?
Pardon?
Where did you say 142?
I said 127, didn't I?
142 is the first one. If you had the whole thing up in front of you, you'd see it.
I'll repeat.
Oh, it's
I move that we approve PC 17-142, SP 17-127, CU 17-03, and VR 17-10, VR 1712, and VR 1713 with the approved modifications. Is that correct terminology, or do I need to list all those? Pardon?
With the modification to the conditions.
Yes.
1 through 9.
Yes, what she said.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. We'll call for the
Yeah,
roll.
is there discussion on it?
On the motion?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Tom, did you move to deny the variance? Is your motion?
No, I said to accept it and to approve it with the ones that we've already talked about.
Okay, all right, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so approving 1 and 2 and denying 3.
Well,
As
by
per the-
denying two,
as
do
per the
we
staff report.
squash the entire application?
No, only that.
Then where does that leave the issuance of a building permit?
Well, again, if you recall, and we can flip to that page, the third variance request, and I need to go back to I just got out of the staff report. Yes. Kelly, can you read the third
Did you bring the
variance
sleeping bag?
and your recommendation?
Yeah, the third variance request is to be exempt from adding non-conforming upgrades to the site, and the staff recommendation is reflected in condition of approval number 8, which says that request for variance to non-conforming upgrades is not approved, and the applicant shall meet the code by choosing one of the
option
2
2.
available options for non-conforming upgrades.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what that was. So we're
Want me to repeat it?
We're approving the staff recommendation with the addition of the revised conditions, now numbered 1 through 9. That's the motion.
Yes.
You need a second?
Yes.
Okay, so I call the vote.
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Maybe,
Aye.
Commissioner Mahoney,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Guile,
Aye, yay.
Chairperson McGriff.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Go forth and do good things.
We'll look forward to that meeting.
Teach you all students.
Can I have
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
Oh, what a marathon.
All right, is there anybody here tonight that's testifying on the next item
Yes. Can I pass these down?
besides the applicants?
Anybody new?
No.
Anybody new? Does anybody want me to read the hearing procedure again? If you do not want me to read it, just say, no, I don't want you to read it again. Just nod your head. Does anybody want me to read it again?
No.
Nobody's nodding anything.
I'd like to hear
So I
your
guess
voice.
that means I'm going to read it again.
No.
There was head shakes, don't read it.
I said, nod your head.
We had several people leave.
Well, that was the previous item. That wasn't this item.
Anyway,
That was the other item. All right, so hearing that, no one is objecting to my not reading this. We read it previously. Everybody's okay with it. There's the hearing procedures, the procedures over there on the wall. We are all good. Okay, thank you, sparing me that.
you need to visit the site quick.
Yes, I'm going to do that. So we have an application here. It's AN 1701, zone change 1703. It says TP is tentative plan?
Plat.
Tentative plat 1707. Those are the files. So, gentlemen, does any commissioner have any ex parte contacts, conflicts of interest, bias, or any other statement to declare? Have you visited the site? I'll start with Tom Guile.
Nope,
I
You have not
drive,
visited the site?
nope.
I've driven by the site, but since it's a long, narrow site, I've just seen a little bit of it. But I am familiar with the area.
I drove by the site.
No,
Ex parte?
no,
Bias?
nothing.
Ex parte?
Yep, done.
Tom?
No.
Okay. And I have visited the site. I did not see anyone. I did not talk to anybody. I do not have any ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest or bias or any other statement to declare. Does anybody wish to challenge the commissioners on our statements about what we did or didn't do and what we might have seen or didn't see? Okay. Hearing no objection. Todd, I don't know which application you're here for, because you didn't say anything on your slip here. All right, so we will open the public hearing on AN 1701, ZC 1703, TP 1707. And the applicants, would you like to come forward?
We're going to have staff report?
Oh, sorry, staff reports. Sorry, just wanted to
That's
get
okay,
done.
I understand.
It's okay. Your staff report's going to be wonderful and amazing. So
I
please go
will do my
for it.
best. Thank you, Chairperson McGriff. This is an annexation zone change and subdivision combined application. There were 2 staff reports, and it's only because the annexation staff report works best when it stays on its own because annexation is a little bit different animal. But tonight, when you move forward with your motion, it's all one project. We just have two reports for findings, but it really all is a combined, and it can be a combined motion as well tonight.
Or not.
I'm saying it can be, if you want it to be. So this, once again, is an annexation. Just a little background. I'm going to actually move forward and show you some maps and then go back with this. So this is the subject site. It's 19701 Southeast Leland Drive. So this is an outline. It's about a 6.33 acre property. Lindsay Ann Estates is right next door, and this is called Lindsay Ann 2. It's the same developer. The surrounding zoning is, let me show you. I'm going to use
The mouse that you
the
can't.
mouse.
Is it still laying on the table?
There we go, okay. So the property is right here in red, I tried to highlight the different zoning to get you to understand. Just so you know, Wheeler Farms, where we were a couple weeks ago, is right here. The properties in gray are still in the county, so you have a C zone. Bright yellow is an R6 zone. Kind of an orange yellow is the R8 zone. Kind of a light yellow is R10, and R3.5 is this medium brown zone. Wesley Lynn Park is located right here.
And blue is?
Blue is, this is quasi-public, so this is one of those things where we have the park is half zone quasi-public and half zone R6. Let me go. This is a layout from the applicant showing the proposed subdivision. And as part of our subdivision application, you're required to do a connectivity analysis to kind of show how the neighboring parcels would play out with the existing streets. So you can see this is a proposed street network if and when the parcels continue on. This is an existing subdivision built out. So I'm going to go back and give you a little tagline. We have 28 lots have been proposed for the subdivision. As part of this analysis, there was a transportation impact report created that looked at the rezone from R10 to R6. So at R10, there could be potentially 17 lots, and R6, 28 lots. And so as part of the transportation planning rule and the analysis for the rezone, that is the numbers that Mr. Mobley proposed in his report and the analysis done. And Mr. Replinger, who's not here tonight, that is what his letter looked at. And his letter is attached as an exhibit. And I know Mr. Mobley's here and can answer any specific questions you may have. Propose the interconnection of the existing sidewalk system from Lindsay Ann 2. Staff believes and agrees with the application that it's continuing this cohesive R6 neighborhood, connecting up existing streets. They have an integrated stormwater management system. This area has been in the UGB since 1979, and the applicant has proposed, and we have conditioned, that all utilities can be constructed on site and do not create off-site impacts, specifically transportation and sewer. And Wendy Marshall is our development service manager, who's in the back, is available for any specific engineering questions you may have tonight, specifically related to sewer. And I'm pushing the wrong button. So I'm going to go back here. We have two public comments. One, Misha Engel, who came to the meeting on November 13th and provided comment. So I want to make sure that was added in. And Jamin Moore, and I apologize, I don't know if this is a woman or a man, so I can't believe I actually defaulted, because I think someone indicated it was, so I apologize in advance, not knowing the gender. But this person put two comments in, specifically related to pedestrian and bicycle access to Wesley Lynn Park, as well as necessitating to have a private park on the subdivision property. And so in the staff report, I did respond to two of these. I'll do the second one first. Subdivision applications don't require private park dedication. We look at system development fees for parks to be put into and utilize as our park system plan. The City of Oregon City does not support public pocket parks for its hard for maintenance, and they are not really part of our park system plan. And so in that respect, all of these houses will be paying system development charges for parks to help with upgrades and new additions to parks. Secondly, the pedestrian circulation system, I'm going to go back to the area a little bit, and it's in your staff report, but a lot of Leland Road has been improved by sidewalks, and most people in this subdivision area will access it by Jesse Court. And while it's not 100% perfect, there's a lot of sidewalk ability to get to the site. People have made comments about sidewalk connections along Leland Road to Jesse Court, and in my conversations with John Lewis, our Public Works Director, he and the Transportation Advisory Committee will continue to monitor the Jesse Avenue and Leland Road intersection, just like they've been doing on the Leland Road frontage on the other part of Leland Road. A new pedestrian crossing has just been put in, and that has been based on kind of a long analysis as if there's enough streetlights and enough kind of meeting the criteria for a protected sidewalk crossing. So until, that analysis can be done here, it is much safer to be crossing at a non-crosswalk, knowing that we may not have adequate lighting. And so Mr. Lewis recommended that this area at Jesse Court be continually monitored with the Transportation Advisory
You said
Committee.
it's safer to not?
Yes, having a crosswalk that is on it's not lighted area.
Not lit.
Not
okay.
lit, having people feel protected. The pedestrian, if you're not in an area that's adequately safe to cross, pedestrians may see a crosswalk and feel that they have more protection than they really do. And so in areas that are not quite ready yet, they haven't fully developed up, it's much safer to wait until that time has come and then at that point have an
Could you
intersection
pull up a
crossing.
map and show, because this obviously doesn't show Jesse Court,
Correct,
so
and I don't
what
have it on here and I
Well,
can,
the
I
next
can pull it
one,
up.
Doesn't the next one have?
Yeah, so if we
aerial?
look at,
Okay,
yeah, here we go.
no,
So-
go back. You can't read that. No, go back to the one you just had up. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, now I can see where Jesse Court
So
is.
Jesse Court is
Yes.
right here.
No, Jesse Court is just above where it says R10. See where it says in the,
Where it says Jesse Court.
that says
That's, I'm sorry,
Jesse?
Jesse Avenue, right here. This
Okay.
is Jesse Court, excuse me.
Okay.
Jesse Avenue is right here, and this is the intersection of Jesse and Leland Road.
Okay.
And this is the parcel right here.
Okay.
The new intersection that has recently been added, crosswalk is right here. And that has been a long time monitoring process with Public Works, and when that has been able to be implemented.
Got a question for you.
Sure.
On the Leland Road, fronting there on the subdivision, is there room made for eventual widening of Leland there?
Well, all new subdivisions require to do the dedication of additional width to meet the
Yeah,
city standards.
that's what I was getting at.
The one unique part is there are a couple of existing homes right here and here, and there's one right here. And so while they don't have sidewalks in there, and we're just going to have to wait, they do have an expanded shoulder. So you can get to that expanded shoulder and get back onto the sidewalk.
Well, I'm not talking about the sidewalk so
Yeah.
much as I'm talking about Leland Road there at the red point here, just.
Yeah, the applicant will be required to make additional dedication as part of the
okay.
subdivision
All right,
application.
all right.
And so that's the odd part. You see the areas where subdivisions have happened, you have the additional dedication,
Mm-hmm.
and then are these couple of these infill lots where you don't have it, and you absolutely can see, and those infill lots will happen through minor partitions, and they will have that dedication done at the time. Okay. So I'm going to continue. So there's a lot of criteria in that staff report, so I'm going to try to condense it down to what I think of the top issues are.
Did you have a readable subdivision plat? Because the one I looked at online and printed out, I couldn't read
Yeah.
anything on it. It was
Okay, I can
too
bring it
small.
up. Yeah. Would you like me to bring it up now or wait till the end?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Please. Even when I blew it up, it was kind of, it blurred, all the letters kind of blurred when it went up to about
Sure.
100%, so
Yeah, I
did
can
not
do
work
that.
printing it out either.
Sorry.
That's okay, I was reading it from afar.
It's on the disc I gave you.
Yeah, I was just going to open it up with your actual, I might go with the applicants. Oh, I see what you're doing, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Does that
There,
help?
yes, that's actually more readable. You
Okay,
can almost read it, yep. There we go.
okay. And I can zoom in
lost it.
based on your,
Did,
Yeah, one more.
yeah, one more.
one more zoom?
There you go.
Whoop.
Okay, I'll try to
There we
do the
go.
best I can to get that centered. Okay. So if I could go back, did you have a question?
No, it was just hard to read. I
Yeah.
just couldn't read it. And I figured, oh, you have a bigger one.
Yeah, I do. So I'm just going to keep these up when the Planning Commission wants to go back through deliberations, but kind of the large, big picture criteria come from the Metro boundary change criteria, and then pulling down to, sorry, let's get back to where we were. As well as the criteria for annexation. Is this inside the urban growth boundary? Yes. Will it be subject to the comprehensive plan? It is part of the, and has been identified as low-density residential. Is at least one lot or parcel within the territory contiguous to the city? Yes, it's next door. And does it conform to all the requirements of the city ordinances? And that's really the rest of the staff report and questions I'm available for answer. The criteria for zone change, once again, deal with consistency with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. Public facilities and services, can they be met or can they be conditionally met? Is it consistent with our transportation system plan? And in D, regarding statewide planning goals, we have specific comprehensive plan policies related to zone changes, so D is not applicable. Just to kind of highlight what I'm seeing, especially after the Wheeler Farms discussion, in this situation, ORS 195, 110, 13A through C again talks about cities' inability to use school capacity issues on any basis for decision. And once again, we did not receive anything from the school district related to capacity issues. The applicant's transportation engineer and our transportation planner did find that the zone change application moving from an R10 to R6 was able to meet the transportation planning rule as proposed and no offsite impacts other than the system's development fees paid by the individual homes. Sewer adequacy, our sewer master plan looks at kind of larger picture capacity issues, and then when an application comes in, the burden of proof goes back onto the applicant to get down to the nitty-gritty. And we can only do so much when we have our sewer master plan, and so the applicant did provide additional information. There's even an addendum letter, and Ms. Marshall is available as well as the applicant's consultant to speak on that issue. Let's see, along with a previous application about neighborhood compatibility, and I'm going to go back to the zoning map. While Planning Commission and staff have a different opinion related to neighborhood livability in the previous application, and the City Commission did find that neighborhood livability is compared on balance to others comprehensive plan policies. In this situation, I think having an R6 recently built subdivision abutting next door is very compatible, and in this situation it's really continuation of an existing development pattern. These properties also use the lot averaging process, and so we have in this subdivision the smallest lot is 4,860 square feet, the largest lot is 29,075 square feet, and the average is 6,487 square feet. And so in this situation, while I think there may still be a difference of opinion related to if you are moving within the same comprehensive plan policy, comprehensive plan designation, is that considered de facto compatible? I think in this situation we have a budding R6 development right next door, and we are a continuation of that neighborhood feel of the R6 subdivision. So in this case, staff recommends that, even in other situations, that I really do believe that neighborhood compatibility criteria can be found in this application, regardless of your opinion of does the R6, R8, or R10 allow kind of de facto compatibility. I think those are my larger comments related to this application. If this is a recommendation to the City Commission, once again, if there's a recommendation for denial, it'll be appealed to the City Commission. And if there's a recommendation for the zone change to be denied, staff does still recommend that the annexation happen. And there's a default in the condition of approval that the annexation is R10. But that would mean that the zone change and subdivision would be denied. So those are some of your options this evening. And I'm available for any questions.
I have a question for you.
Before you get
Sorry.
to that,
Yeah.
this is going to be one of those interesting announcements. If any of you have a Volvo station wagon, your lights are on in the parking lot. So it belongs to somebody. So I was just asked to make that announcement.
Station wagon or SUV?
Said station wagon. Volvo wagon.
Convertible.
Okay, so it's nobody's car. Okay, well, we'll be calling AAA, I guess. All right. Sorry, go ahead, Tom, please.
So I just had a quick question. In the Lindsay Ann Lane one, those are R6s. What's the lot averaging there? Is it down to 4s? And do you have any idea? And
You know, I did not do the
My-
analysis.
my-
I just have a question
No, my
about it.
question was did that use lot averaging?
Yeah, I can answer the second one, which is yes, that went in at the time that lot averaging was allowed. However, I don't have the specific analysis, but
Just wondered.
I'm assuming if it was allowed, that they've taken advantage of it.
I just wondered.
Okay. Vern, do you have any questions?
Nope, not at this time.
Okay, all right, applicant, plural, or more than one. Todd, I'm presuming when you said you were representing the applicant, you meant this application, yes?
Actually, both, yeah.
Both what? The school district one and this one? Okay. So just next time, just put that on there. It totally confused me.
Is he the attorney?
And
No, he's a traffic engineer.
okay.
just a second, I'm going to bring up your, give me 1 second. Yeah,
Need a ride home?
sorry. Multitasking is not working.
Was it
today.
you, Bob?
I'll give you a ride home.
And
She only drives 10 miles an hour.
all right, that should work.
Okay.
Ooh, that's giant.
Thank you, Chair McGriff, members of the commission. My name is Chris Goodell with AKS Engineering. The address is 12965 Southwest Herman Road, Suite 100, Tualatin, Oregon 97062. Here working with the applicant and for the property owner. Just to have a very brief presentation, Christina has a very thorough staff report, and we have a very thorough application that we put together for this project. This here lists the basic project team members, including our firm, Perkins Coie, Geo-Pacific Engineering, Lancaster Engineering, and this lists the property owners also. This here shows the existing conditions of the site and the adjacent Lindsay Ann Estates subdivision to the south. It's approximately 6.33 acres, currently Clackamas County FU 10 zoning. The plan zoning is Oregon City R6.
Can you make it bigger?
No.
Make what bigger? The
Well, you're showing us the light colored stuff and it's kind of tiny. And I have really good eyes.
Did you not get a set of all this, everything I have here is
Yeah.
in the set of the plans that we
Again, when you're
provided?
printing it out and you're looking at it, it comes out really, really small. So I don't have a giant printer at home, so. Okay, just go ahead.
We have a full-size set, if I can bring it up, if that helps.
I don't know if I hand it to you.
Yeah.
It's sheet number 2.
And this will not be an exhibit because this
No,
is
you
already
already
in.
have, you already
Yeah.
have it. Back in the old days, we used to give the planning commissioners these things, but we don't do that anymore.
I thought we handed them in, didn't we?
But they don't get sent
We
to the
don't
planning
get this.
commission.
Okay, we print a bunch of them, though.
No, they go to her, and then if we want them, we go in and get them.
Oh, okay.
They keep it electronic, so they don't have $5 million worth of trees being built. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I know we print them all, and they are very
It's sheet
expensive,
2?
so,
You said it's
yes.
sheet 2?
The second sheet.
Okay, P1-02?
Yeah, it should be the existing conditions plan.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yes, this is like, thank you. It's like 100% better.
It's good. Okay. I'll move along here real quick.
Sure, you're fine.
So just a few, this is a city map here. It's a comprehensive plan land use map. The subject property is shown with the dashed lines. The city boundary is in red, and the urban growth boundary, where it doesn't coincide with the city boundary, is purple. So this property is adjacent to the city. This is a map showing a portion of the original metropolitan urban growth boundary from 1979. This property was included. Still the same hatch marks. A little bit about the zone change application. Christina spoke about it. It's FU 10 to R6. R6 is a low-density residential designation. Services as indicated in the staff report and our application. The services are available to serve the project.
Yep.
Christina showed this drawing as well. This shows the recently approved and built Lindsay Estates project, Ellis Estates, and Marlowe Farm subdivisions to the south. And this application connects to those. So this project is consistent in terms of densities and lot sizes with those other projects. You asked a question about what was the average lot size, or was lot size averaging in Lindsay Estates, and the answer is yes. And I think the average lot size was around 6,000 square feet approximately. The subdivision here shows continuation of Cedarwood Way and Cherrywood Way and improvements on Leland Road. So this would be single-family detached homes. This here shows sidewalks and connectivity by roadways. So it's a continuation of the existing development pattern established from the south. In terms of utilities, we have an integrated stormwater management plan that includes street side swales and a stormwater facility kind of in the southern portion of the site. Again, it's similar in terms of lot sizes and densities to the existing subdivisions to the south. That's all I have in terms of a presentation. I'm here with the civil engineering project manager, the traffic engineer, and the applicant's land use counsel. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them to the best of my abilities. And
Bob, just jump in.
Can you show me that lot that somebody referred to as 4,000 square foot lot?
It's probably,
This where the
Maybe on the one
smallest
that
lot
Chris-
looks like the 4860, the smallest lot on the parcel. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
which one's that one?
Yeah, where is it located? I don't see it.
I think you have to go to the one you had that showed the.
Yeah, I'll let Chris.
Well, probably lot one is I think the smallest one there.
Lot 1, okay, but lot 2 is that the same size? 'Cause
It's a little bigger because it's a corner yard or corner side, so we make those usually bigger.
Okay, but lot 1 is 4,000 square feet.
No,
48,
Fourth,
12, something like that.
Oh, okay, all right, all right.
Is not.
4,860 square
Okay,
feet.
good, my bad.
And then 3 and 23 is so big because of the
Power
overhead
line.
power lines.
Correct.
And
3
then,
and 23?
no, I spoke. Just out of curiosity, was there any attempt made to contact the tax lot that's cut out of 28 to see if they wanted to be part of this process?
Talk to you mean tax lot
Talking about
1,01401?
1401?
Yeah,
This
the
one
one,
right here.
the one.
Yeah, we've had dealings with that property owner, and they were not interested.
Okay, it's just a question of whether
They've
they.
got the easement over the top of their property as well. What can they do? They
But
can't
they'd
do
have to be
anything.
No,
part of it.
it's, you've got city property and then this one little piece, which isn't technically an island because across the street is county.
That's correct.
They don't-
Whether or not you'd reached out to them is all I wanted to know, and you had, that's fine.
And we've spoken to other properties in the area, property owners in the
Then
area
they'd
as well.
also have to be part of an HOA and pay those fees, so standalone.
necessarily.
If they
So
went
what's,
in with
what's being done about mitigating clear cutting of all the trees, since it looked like there was a substantial number of trees on the property?
I don't know if there's a substantial, there's a number of trees, so they'll be either mitigated for on-site. The ones that have to get removed, they'll be mitigated for on-site and/or paid into the city's tree mitigation fund.
Which ones are going to be retained?
Well, we have a tree preservation and removal plan. And it's on sheet,
That's not in our,
It's in, this tree preservation plan is in your exhibits, but it's not,
P10 and P110 and
you have to dig
P111.
down
Say
into
they
it.
were
He's
cut.
given,
They just said what's going to be happening.
That's so one, and the next one's so too.
So by and large, they're being removed.
So all the trees are.
I don't know about all of them, but the vast majority.
He's going to that page, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, looks like about all of them. Might be one or two kept, but it's just one stretch of them that's off, open on each side. But that's what everything is. Oh, track days, stormwater.
Right.
So our arborist went to the property and investigated the trees and looked and see which ones could be preserved with the project, and that's what this plan here is showing.
Is lot 28 an actual property?
Lot 28, an actual
The one
property.
that's the L
It's an
shape.
L shape?
Correct, it's a lot in subdivision.
So I was wondering, if all those electrical wires pass over there, where do they enter? Do they have to go under the wires each time to enter their property? Because how do they get inside there? Because it looks like the only place you can build it is behind 27 or 24.
All these, everybody coming off of Leland Road will be going underneath the power lines.
Okay, so they can't build anything under the power lines right now, correct? Is that, not possible?
Yeah, structures, no.
So their home has to be down inside there?
Yeah, we have a building setback plan that shows, I think it's part of the plat.
And what about 3? Because 3 of those lines cross over most of all of 3.
Right, so if you
Except for
look
the
at
corner
sheet
behind 1.
P103, it shows the lot areas and the easements, and then the,
That's on this big map?
Yeah.
well, yes, it's on every, I'm assuming it's on the package that you got.
Yeah.
But in terms of that.
This is
big-
bigger.
Yeah,
Again, see, I don't see anything on 3 here.
P103, yeah, it shows the, set. yeah.
Dash line.
And you can build a little tiny shed in that corner, but there's actually fairly substantial, that's 100 by 40.
Okay.
So that's actually fairly
I
substantial.
was wondering how they were going to drive in there, but I
Well,
see there, yeah.
Yeah, and a driveway would work, so.
And the other thing I was wondering, is there any reason why you can't do stormwater, those underneath the electrical wires, so you can use that kind of area, or is it
They don't really allow anything.
under the electrical
those,
wires?
yeah.
Okay, I didn't know, so,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I presume
they-
there aren't any towers within,
Doesn't look.
Not within the street area. There's, I believe, if you look on the existing conditions plan, I'd have to, there is a tower that will be on lot 3. Yeah, you can see it.
the square is the tower, yeah, that's what I thought, okay. Yeah, those things hum and buzz. All right, I don't think anybody has any more questions?
I got one.
Oh, you do?
Just
Okay.
for information only. How long does it take you to develop plans like this? What's the planning duration, the process? It's got to,
Put together these preliminary plans.
and inventory and review of the lot and property and all that kind of stuff. Over a year?
No, I'd say counting the survey and all that work, 3 months,
3 months?
3 to 4 months.
And then after that comes the construction drawings?
Correct.
Okay.
And those take a lot longer.
Which will include the drainage.
Yeah, it will include everything that's shown here plus more detail, because our preliminary plans are very detailed, more so than most firms, I would say. But they don't lack all the detail necessary for a contractor to go out and bid a project and then build it.
Do you ever work with a D8 cat operator? He's the last
is he
one to
sitting
get the
in-
word if
sitting in
the
back of me?
tree comes down. I mean, he just forward, you know? Just go.
Yeah, we work with contractors all the time.
Okay.
Are there any other questions of the commission?
Are the commission?
Yes, this commission.
No,
Of the commission.
them, from us.
Of the commission.
Nope, I am.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
And
Chairperson McGriff, I failed to put Exhibit 1 into the record tonight, and this is a letter from the applicant to the Planning Commission. You have it on your dais in front of you.
Yes, and this
will
just
be-
came in
This
tonight.
just came in
Yes.
today and will be added into the record as Exhibit 1 tonight.
And again, unfortunately, we have not had time to read it. Todd, did you want to say anything? Nobody had any questions about that?
No thanks.
Chris, did you want to say anything?
That was me.
Yeah, oh, sorry, Chris.
Is there another
Sorry.
Chris?
Yeah, there might be, who knows? Mike, did you want to say anything?
No.
Okay. Michael? Come on up, please.
Too late. It's over.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for letting me speak, and I apologize, this is going to be a little bit repetitive, because I said almost the same thing about a month ago.
You are fine.
I want to talk to you about...
Name and city
I'm sorry,
residence.
didn't I say my name?
Nope.
Oh, Mike Mitchell, I'm an Oregon City resident.
Okay.
And that has to do with this, with lot averaging. The Wheeler Farms property that you reviewed a month ago, over 80% of those lots were undersized. 25 of 28 of these are undersized. I believe that it's a glaring error in our code that there's not a restriction on the percentage of those lots in a subdivision that can be undersized. But I have to believe that a reasonable reading of that code couldn't lead someone to the conclusion that 25 of 28 lots can be undersized. You're not being asked to approve an R6 subdivision. You're asked to being approve an R5 something that doesn't exist. I know the bigger issue is the code. I don't know what flexibility you have to put a reasonable view on it. I've got to bring it up again. It happened a month ago. It's happening at this one. I have the paperwork over there at my desk for an 11-lot subdivision in Park Place that the infrastructure is going in right now, and 6 of those 11 are undersized. I can't believe that a majority of the lots can be undersized, and we still can call that an R6 subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Well stated.
Is there any further public testimony? Okay, is there any request for rebuttal?
Yes.
Timer.
Thank you, Chris Goodell again. I would just say that with respect to lot size averaging, yes, this application includes lot size averaging. There are many jurisdictions that have lot size averaging, and some have a description of what, I guess, an upper end limit, a largest and a smallest. This Oregon City's code has a smallest, so it's 20%. So that's what this subdivision has. But it's really, in terms of the density, that's what's controlling the number of homes. So you still average 6,000, whether or not one's larger or smaller, they're still averaging over 6,000 in this case. We're at, I think, 6,400 square feet average. So we meet that criteria. We're over 6,000 square foot average, and complies with the density. So.
Thanks, Chris. Chairman Griff, members of the commission, my name is Michael Robinson. I'm representing the applicant. My mailing address is 1120 Northwest Couch Street. Couch is spelled C-O-U-C-H, 10th floor, Portland, 972094128. So I appreciate what Mr. Mitchell had to say, but the code provides, it's clear and objective. 16.112.050 provides that a subdivision in a number of zones, including the R6 zone, may include lots that are up to 20% less than the required minimum lot area of the applicable zoning district, provided the entire subdivision, on average, meets the minimum site area requirement of the underlying zone. So it's clear and objective language. The staff report for the zoning map amendment and subdivision at page 24 addresses 16.12.050 and explains why the application meets the standards. So while there may be disagreement about whether lot averaging is appropriate or should be used, it's clear that this application meets the standard, and on that basis, we ask you to approve the application, or rather recommend approval to the City Commission of the 3 applications. And we thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further testimony or any questions, I'm going to close the public hearing, allow the commission to deliberate.
Well, go ahead, Dave.
What's your pleasure?
Go ahead, Bob.
Well, I think both the public testimony given here, everybody's right. Everybody's right. It's up to us, I guess, to obviously make the decision. But I've stated before, I do not like lot averaging. I think it's got us captured, so to speak. We're being held hostage by our own code. But that's a matter for the comprehensive plan and the legislative process to decide whether or not it's in the future for Oregon City growth pattern. it's going to add density to our city, and we've got to decide whether or not that's appropriate or not. But in terms of this application here, it meets the code. And we've got to uphold the integrity of the code. I think the applicant's done a good job on a problem lot. It's a big lot that tries to incorporate design with adjacent properties for street pattern and lot size, which is determined by lot averaging. And it's the problem lot because you got that easement going through it. I don't see any problem with traffic generated from it on a regional basis for our intersections that I can't bring them to mind exactly right now. But point is, I think that everybody's done their job based on standards that really aren't, that are objectionable to some people, including myself, and that's being a lot averaging.
So you're saying we're going to hold our nose and do something
Yeah,
there.
we're caught between a rock and a hard spot, but I come down on the side of the city and the code, and us being fair to everybody that comes before this commission. And if we don't like the legislation in the code, then we change it.
Funny thing you should say that, because that's going to be our next
Well,
topic
I
on
hope
the
it is.
agenda.
This is a
Topic.
What he's done.
No, we've had an application come before us tonight on the school board, and they're responding to the needs of the people to educate the kids, which is the amount and number and rate of growth is determined by our decisions for lot averaging. Density that we really haven't understood the complete effect of. And I don't know if I'm putting it in the right words, but I think we've got to look at that comprehensive plan. But in the meantime, we've got to respond to the people that make applications come before us. And as it stands right now, I'm going to support this application based on our code requirements. And to be fair, for all parties that testified tonight.
I will say one comment about your comment is that you're making the assumption that every subdivision is going to have kids in it, and that's not the case. They're
going to have some kids in
They're
it.
showing that most of the new development that's happening in the Portland metro area is no kids.
And just one final point. We're planning
Yes.
for future generations here of kids that are 25, 30 years old that have a different mindset in what the word family means and what the word lot size and lot style means and livability. That's a whole new generation of people that we're planning for and responding to. And I don't get a good, accurate read on that, except that the demand for housing is here. It's upon us. And growth is going to hit us like a tsunami here pretty quick. And we've got to start approving lot sizes that we're not used to.
I think the tsunami's already here.
People are moving out from what I heard in the news.
Just try to drive up Malala Avenue.
Well, you have to stop at all the pot shops. I agreed with the first 2 minutes of what you said, Bob. I'm hearing on the news. I'm hearing on the news about how many people are actually, they're saying move away from Portland in this area. It's not like it was when they were telling everybody to move here, but that's a different point. I think lot averaging, when it was first proposed in the code, was supposed to mean buildable lots and not under wires or next to a lake or a dump or whatever, that you could include that into your whole lot averaging. To me, that's just a distortion of the whole thing, and I agree with Frank O'Donnell on the city commission on that. The thing that I'm bothered with tonight is, and I've told Laura this and Christina, this piece of paper came to us just tonight, and I feel like it's a decision-making instructions on how we're supposed to make our decision. And I haven't had time to read it, so I'm not going to make a decision when I haven't had time to read what I'm supposed to do and what I'm supposed to follow. I feel like now any discretionary has been taken out of my control, and I need to follow exactly what's on this paper. I've already told them that. I need time to read these things when they come before us.
I don't have a problem with that. I want everybody to be comfortable with their decision, except me.
Anybody else? Yes?
A lot's been said about lot averaging, and it's not going to get settled in this room tonight in the next 30 minutes or 30 hours, however long we stay here. It's really, lot averaging is attempting, I believe, to take into consideration the characteristics of some of the land that we're all of a sudden starting to deal with. Next to the urban growth boundary, this one doesn't have slopes, but it does sit right on the urban growth boundary. And the power lines. The power lines have been there since 1960. And it's an attempt to get more efficient use out of the land, which can be said another way, prevent sprawl. We're using the land that we have with the characteristics on it to the best advantage we can. And it is the code that we're really measuring it on, as Bob has said, and that we have to vote the code that's on the books today. So I will support this.
Damon?
Yeah, I'll just go on the record saying I don't like the way the lot averaging is written either. And I was part of the original discussion and said, what happens when somebody puts a 40,000 square foot lot in and then a bunch of 2,000 square foot lots? But, and it was there for those unusual contours. But be that as it may, it is what it is. I was the one who made the big argument about livability. And I don't see this as being the same case as the Wheeler Farm. Again, as was pointed out, it's an R6 against an R6 and against undeveloped property. And I did go back and look, and yes, most of them are under 6,000, but at least 11 of the lots are within 10%, and I think that's a reasonable variation. So it's much better than, again, the Wheeler Farm, where if it wasn't over 8,000, it was like right on the, so it's I think a better place. My issue with the previous livability issues were the transitioning between the zones. So I don't see those issues here. I should do a thing about school capacity just because you brought it up that I can't, so, but I won't.
Yeah, I'm not paying attention to that.
The, you know, I think this is a reasonable continuation of the neighborhood that's set there. My concern is that it's all bundled together, and I don't know what's the outcome of the challenge to home rule and required voter annexation. Is that still bubbling through?
Still percolating through the courts.
So at some point they could clear the land and then it gets overturned and they're stuck because they're not in the city limits.
So I'd have to go back and look at this. My memory when we looked at it the first time is that if there's an annexation and no one challenges it, but it was, you know, the charter provision could have been applied, there's at least an argument that it's beyond challenge, and, you know, since there's no appeal, it's in the city, I believe is what our reasoning was back at the time. So if somebody believes that it's wrong to continue to approve these based on the legislation, they need to appeal that and raise that issue. And, you know, if somebody isn't doing it, it's not that suddenly it's de-annexed.
Okay, that was my concern, is that you'd get 6-8 months down the road and then finally the Supreme Court makes a decision. It's like, oops.
Yeah, and I'm, you know.
But that's their business decision too. So.
That's a risk they're taking, and it's a risk the city takes as well,
sure.
You know, because it'd be disruptive.
We're just recommending approval of the annexation. It's the city commission that would be the ones taking the action.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to be clear on that. But the subdivision and the zone change would stop with us, or will the whole package go up?
The city commission has to approve the zone change. We would be approving the subdivision.
Okay.
You know, and
it's one of the reasons why I don't like the consolidated applications. I think they need to go to each governing jurisdiction, a governing body, and be settled there. And putting this all together, to me, just convolutes the whole issue. I know applicants are allowed to do it.
We tried.
I'd rather, I don't like it. I'm just saying, I don't like it. To me, it muddies the water.
Understood, but the way it works when they're consolidated, it goes to the final
Right,
decision maker, so.
I know. Again, I'm just voicing my objection. I don't like it because it muddies everything.
Take it up with the
But
state rep.
On that basis, though, I mean, I do not see an objection to this particular plan, other than light outage sucks, but, we'll just leave it at that.
Well, we all agree on that.
I got just one more thing, very short.
Oh, please, take all the time you like.
What I've noticed is that we've got a lot of players here. We got the city, we got Metro. Metro's got a big set of gloves on.
They don't
And we
scare
got
me.
the State Land Use Board
They don't scare me either.
and us. And everybody's got their finger in the pie, so to speak, with the responsibility as to how to develop a community. And lots of times the decision has been made outside this jurisdiction with various policies and remedies and things like that. And I'm talking about Metro and trying to solve the density and available home sites. And it's a wonder, really, we get no decision made sometimes. But here we are. And I'll say again, I'll support the application based on the code.
Well, gentlemen, as you know, I still have issues regardless of what the traffic studies say. It's death by 1,000 cuts. We're just continuing to fill the glass up. The glass is already running over. Again, I've noticed when I've been out that way, the traffic conditions out there, they are not good. That's about all I'm going to say. Do we want to make one motion or do we want to make 3 separate motions?
Or
And Chair
do you want a
McGriff,
continuation?
Oh, no, you can go ahead and.
Okay.
I don't want to do anything.
Chairperson McGriff, I have one 120-day question, if that's okay.
Sure.
So the applicant's 120-day is December 9th. So before there is a vote, I'd like to get confirmation from the applicant that they're willing to continue.
You don't have to
They
continue
don't-
for me.
They have to continue the 120-day decision to
And they
allow.
can just nod yes from the audience. We're not reopening.
We're not going to reopen.
We're not
just-
reopening.
It's not, it's wrong on that.
Okay. So it sounds like they're willing to extend the 120-day.
We'll get back.
Okay.
Well, either they are or they aren't. Getting back to you, it doesn't help.
Our client's not here, we're not going to extend it tonight.
Okay.
Well, in respect of that, I'm willing to make a comprehensive motion to recommend approval to the City Commission of AN 1701, ZC 1703, and approve TP 1707 with the staff report as written.
Is there a
You're
second?
looking confused there, Christine.
I just want confirmation that it's not a continuation of the consolidated application to the city commission.
Nobody's requested a continuance.
No, I'm sorry. It's a recommendation as a package to the city commission. I was just checking with our assistant city
We
attorney.
need a second before we can have any further discussion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
And so, as I understand it, since they're consolidated, there's one decision maker. What you're recommending these various things, typically you would be the final word with the subdivision. You're looking at me like I'm crazy.
Subdivisions are a type 2 staff decision. I don't know if that has any indication of that.
Good evening. So I think what we're clarifying is that the recommendation is for approval from what I hear.
Of the
And
subdivision.
it would be, you move everything together as a package to the city commission. If you want to recommend approval on all 3 items, you can. If you want to recommend approval on 1 or 2 of the 3 items, you can. But the whole package moves together to the city
Okay, so we
commission
can-
unless you deny them all.
Okay. So, what she said, no, I recommend approval of AN 1701, ZC 1703, and TP 1707.
I think you kind of already said
But
that. Conditioned,
I
yes.
said them differently, so.
Does the maker of the second?
I'll say my second the same
okay.
way.
Okay, we're good. All right. Call for the question.
All right. Hold on a second. Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Mahoney?
Aye.
Commissioner Maybe?
Aye.
Commissioner Guile?
Abstain.
And Chairperson
read it.
McGriff.
No.
Okay, motion passes, though.
All right, we have communications, and then we have to go back to the first item. So do we want to do the communications first, or do we want to go back to the other item?
Your pleasure. I certainly know there are people in the audience who probably would prefer to get that other item resolved.
Have you resolved the calendar versus business? That's the issue.
I think so, and
No, we are not taking any testimony or comments at this time. We'd like to hear from the attorney, please.
I think the only guidance we have that would even be conceivably applicable to this is that section that we quoted from section 1.04 of the city code. And let me see, I already put it aside.
Right, where they talk about Sundays and holidays, which
Right.
implies calendar.
Right.
Calendar.
Which implies calendar. Not only does it imply calendar, it says holidays mean something when it on the last day, but it doesn't say anything about holidays on other days. So I think my recommendation to you would be that this is untimely.
Well, it would be if we're going with calendar days anyway, so.
So I think that was the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Do you all concur that that was the question? Is the request timely?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Okay, they all concur.
so I would move,
I need to rebut that. I have something to say. I have authority to offer.
Chairperson McGriff, you have authority to control. You could allow additional comment or not. It's up to you.
Gentlemen, what is your pleasure? Do you want to allow additional comment or not? I'm going to go by, I'd like to take a poll. What's your opinion?
I think it's before the planning commission. I don't think there's any need to take any more additional.
Okay, so no more.
No, I don't think it'll add to the debate.
Okay.
no additional comment?
It may not add anything to anything, but I wouldn't mind hearing what he has to say, because it might be, I don't think it's going to change anything, but I think we should hear it out.
and I would not like to stifle the public process, so I'm willing to hear him.
Okay. How much time?
I say 2 minutes each, or 3 minutes each, because I know Mr. Roberts is going to want to respond too. So 3 minutes each.
Okay. All right, come on up. This is highly unorthodox, but we are going to err on the side of being open and transparent.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for the courtesy. Okay, so
Can I get you to say your name for the
Say your
record?
name and
James
all that good
Nasita
stuff.
again from Oregon City. So I was in the back looking over codes and statutes, and I'd like to make 2 points. One is the question of the reconsideration code seems to be ambiguous as to who actually makes the decision to grant a reconsideration or not. I personally think since, as I mentioned, it was Mr. King and Mr. Hill were talking to staff after the record had closed. Mr. King was on this side, Mr. Hill was on that side. Mr. King actually went over to talk to Ms. Turway and Ms. Richter's side of the table. So I think Ms. Turway actually would have some conflict in making this decision. And I want to suggest to the city attorney that the Planning Commission statute at 2.24.090 subsection K states to exercise any express or implied power or act pursuant to this code, or Chapter 227 would give this Planning Commission authority to make that decision. The other authority I would like to offer is that the date ordinance that Mr. Kabaisman was just referencing opens with says unless otherwise provided. Okay, so I would like to offer the section of the state statutes on statutory construction, ORS 174.120, computation of time. Subsection 1, the time within which an act is to be done as provided in the civil and criminal procedure statutes is computed by excluding the first day, including the last day, unless the last day falls upon any legal holiday or on a Saturday, in which case the last day is also excluded. So if you read those statutes together, this state statute fills the hole and fills the Saturday that the local code ordinance is. But to say it's untimely would produce an injustice, because if it fell on Thanksgiving, the holiday you're closed at, or Sunday, I'd be okay, but just the roll of the dice says a Saturday, that defeats the purpose of the ordinance, because the ordinance says you're supposed to have 10 days, and by that Saturday whole, I only have 7 days. So that renders an injustice. And so in 174.010, you're supposed to give construction to all statutes, and that's why I think you can read them together. And then 174.030, construction favoring natural right to prevail, where a statute is equally susceptible of two interpretations, one in favor of natural right and the other against it. The former is to prevail. And if I have a right to a reconsideration, and there is this statute that will fill the hole of the Saturday, justice, I think, requires the commission to fill the hole on Saturday. It says civil proceedings, but this is a quasi-judicial proceeding. And it refers to state statutes, but these quasi-judicial proceedings, are governed by state statute, 227 and 197. So I think I have a valid argument. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Great. Chairman, before I know you want to talk, but we want to hear his.
Yeah. Two responses. First, the question of ambiguity as a decision maker. We don't even get there if the timing is wrong. Let's talk about the code versus a statute. Our code says, has a specifically for this code. The provision cited by Mr. Nacetas, 174.020, says the time within which to act is to be done as provided in the civil and criminal. Sorry, let me try again. The time within which an act is to be done as provided in the civil and criminal procedure statutes. So it's specific as to what it applies to, civil and criminal procedure statutes. This is not a civil procedure, and it's not a criminal procedure. And this is a quasi-judicial city code. I would suggest that our code language prevails.
The issue as to why this debate is being held tonight, as opposed to handing the planning staff an intent to reconsider or appeal or however you want, a week ago or 2 or 3 days ago, within the allotted time, kind of strikes me as curious. I mean, why are we talking about it tonight? Why weren't we talking about it? Why wasn't the intent to proceed with Mr. Nacita's request made by Mr. Nacita a week ago instead of tonight?
There's a lot of record to go through, so.
Pardon me?
There's a lot of record to go through, so.
Well, that's true, but, why put us on the spot, 5 minutes before we're ready to adjourn?
No.
That to me, there's something different here.
Okay. All right, Mr. Robbins, you want your 3 minutes?
Are you running the meeting, Mr. Maybe?
Yeah, he probably is.
Okay, just checking.
Our initials both are the same, so, we're interchangeable.
I noticed that, but we won't go there. Good evening, Chair McGriff, members of the commission, Michael Robinson on behalf of the applicant. So let me start, if I may, with what I think you ought to consider is the most important thing. You should not make a decision on this. You're not required to. Forget the argument I gave you a moment ago or earlier tonight that the language doesn't place this decision before the Planning Commission. If you look at the OCMC provision Mr. Geisman cited, it doesn't even mention Planning Commission in it. It only mentions Planning Division and Community Development Director. So I think the idea of the Planning Commission making this decision like this is not what the code provides for. But secondly, if you want a practical reason why I believe it's the right thing to do not to do anything, is you're trying to do this on the fly. You've got attorneys citing to you all sorts of code provisions. None of it's in writing. We're just having to guess what it means. You're better at this than me, but my expectation would be you would want to see arguments laid out in front of you. And as you pointed out, when you get letters the night of the hearing, you don't really have a chance to read them. Here, you're even more disadvantaged because you don't even have anything to read. The last point is, I guarantee you, you talk about justice, I think that's an ironic statement. If you make a decision, he will appeal it. So now we're going to have something else going up the chain. So I encourage you, you're not obligated to make a decision. I wouldn't take a vote or a motion at all because it will be appealed. So that, but let me tell you, even if somehow we did get to the point of reconsideration, I want to advise you, the applicant's here, I've consulted with him, he will not extend the 120-day clock. We've been at this, if you recall, we had our first hearing when it was hot outside. Now it's cold and rainy. That's how long this has taken. And again, the principal consideration is, if you want to talk about justice, the principal consideration in Chapter 197 is getting applications through in a timely process. You're right, Chair McGriff, we've extended the clock, and we did so because we thought it was appropriate to the public to let them have their say within your process and to let this commission decide. Now you're hearing a very odd request. By the way, if I hadn't been here, it would have been made and discussed without any participation by the applicant. How is that fair? So I ask you not to make any decision. You're not obligated to. In any event, I agree with your staff. It is too late. The statute controls. Let me see if there's anything else that might be helpful for you to hear from me. Probably not. Oh, Mr. Nocita could have raised his issues, his errors, and preserved them at that last Planning Commission hearing. Luba's holdings are very clear that a person that observes procedural errors has an obligation to raise them even if the commission is offended by it. So that's why sometimes we do things that commissions and councils may not like because we're compelled to raise them. Mr. Nocita did not raise them. They can't be raised on the city commission. They shouldn't be raised now. So I would ask you to take no action and just let this thing die. Thank you.
Mr. Kmeisman, would you?
Thank you. And generally, I agree with what he indicated, except for one thing, the idea of not making a decision. And here's why. There's two reasons. First, a little bit skittish about not making a decision given what happened with the Camp Adair buildings and the Historic Review Board. I'm not certain if you're familiar with those. I can get in the details there. And what happened there, they didn't make a decision and it came back to bite the city. The second issue, the concern about the appeal. If in fact the city doesn't make the decision, there could be an appeal filed sometime down the chain, that's even later. This way, the Planning Commission makes a decision if in fact somebody wants to appeal the Planning Commission's decision not to grant reconsideration. That's moving at a faster time frame than if it's an appeal filed 3 months later saying the Planning Commission never did anything on their request. So I would recommend having a vote.
Damned if we do, or we're damned if we don't, right?
Well, based on that and my, I didn't actually read the specifics, but I think we pretty much got all of 260 between the two. I think that you're correct that it's a calendar day, that the city's ordinance would trump, and
It's more restricted.
And, the ability to bring something up can be done on a Saturday through an email filing. At least it would be in the office in a timely manner, which is not something that probably when that was written, it was like, there ain't nobody here. So as much as I dislike to do it, I think the proper thing at this point is to move to not reconsider the issues brought before us by Mr. Nocita and to let the record continue as is.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
I could go along with what Damon said. We make a decision, but do we give a reason why we...
Make sure you get closer to the mic.
Did we give a reason of why that was what we did? Could we state we believe it was filed late?
Yeah, that's my motion, is that it's untimely and therefore not be reconsidered.
We acted, and here's what we acted on. We didn't act on 1,000 other things that could have been before us, but we made it clear what was our deciding factor.
What I would recommend is that the motion be to not take any action on the request for reconsideration because it was untimely filed.
I thought that's what I was trying to say.
Okay. I think you did, I'm just.
Sort of.
Yeah.
I second.
Okay.
Well, I guess I was not here, but I guess my question is that if this problem, as stated, took place on October 23rd, which was 2 meetings before this, there was an opportunity, I presume, on the 13th, possibly an opportunity on the 13th, when the commission met again.
Well, that's Mr. Robinson's point is if irrespective of whether we wanted him to,
Right.
he kept saying, there's a procedural error, there's a procedural error. Then
Okay, yeah, okay. All right, well, I'm trying to keep all the dates straight in my head. Okay, so we've had a motion and a second that we not take any action on the request due to the that it is untimely. Is that correct?
yes.
All right.
Can I ask a question?
Nope.
We're waiting for the vote. Unless it's a procedural error and you're going to.
Did we have, I'm sorry, I missed the second.
Bob.
Okay, apologies. Okay. Commissioner Guile?
And unfortunately, I agree with Mike Robinson, Mr. Robinson, that if he had not been here tonight, he wouldn't have had a chance to counteract it. So unfortunately, I have to vote aye.
Commissioner Maybe?
Aye.
Commissioner Mahoney?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Chairperson McGriff?
Abstain.
All right, motion carries.
Okay, communications. So Laura has some possible dates
Go forth and.
for us to have a joint, not a joint, but we have to make a presentation
It is
to
here.
the planning, to the city commission. But I would like to find out what those possible dates are and then make a suggestion. And the suggestion is that we have a goal-setting session before we go to the city commission with our annual report, because I think it would be timely. And the reason I'm saying that is because in my many mind melds with Mr. Mahoney, and I say mind melds that I've had with Mr. Mahoney, because we're like simpatico.
Okay, Dr. Spock.
And, no, not Dr. Spock, Mr. Spock.
No, okay.
Remember, it was Mr. Spock. He has the mind meld.
Dr. Spock doesn't want you to spank people.
That's right. We had at least 3 things that I'm aware of on our list. Number 1 was get the wetland delineation completed in Kanema. And I would say that has risen to the cream of the top, which is making some proposals and recommendations to change the lot averaging. And then number 3 would be the big kahuna, which is taking a look at what we need to do for periodic review. And there may be 3 or 4 others, but those were my top 3
Okay.
that I had got from all of you with the mind melds.
I had an opportunity to talk this over with.
And you've got it all solved?
No, I got it solved. It's just money.
Right.
About $250 million. But I think what we ought to do is be cognizant, there's a word for you, of the city budget. Because whatever we do with the comprehensive plan
That would be part of the discussion.
is going to cost money.
It always is cost money.
And it's going to be an extended period of at least 2 years if we're going to incorporate public testimony and conversation with the citizens of Oregon City and yada, yada, yada. But the other thing I want to tell you, not tell you, but share with you.
Telling.
I think the manner in which and the process in which we put together a comprehensive plan throughout the state of Oregon is antiquated. I really do. I think that we have to sit down and have a real, genuine conversation back and forth with the community at large as to which direction the growth of this community is going to take, because it implies a lot of money, a lot of expenditure of public funds in the school district jurisdiction, in the city's jurisdiction, and all of the private districts that serve the community, like water treatment and what have you, sewer districts and things of that nature, and get something bona fide that we're all partners in. And I think when we do that, it gives the comprehensive plan a little bit more strength. It speaks for the community when we involve these people, us people, all of us. And I think that calls for not just a plan, but a strategy. And we've got to start putting faces on these plans, because we're dealing with people. We're dealing with crosswalks where people get hit. We're dealing with libraries where people check out books and educate their kids. We're dealing with parks where they recreate. We're dealing with public safety in our highways and things of this nature. And we got to include these people because they're not being included in the federal. Politics are local. And that's where the strength of this country is in our people. And we got to start talking to each other.
You weren't assuming I was saying that there wouldn't be any citizen participation?
No, I wasn't assuming.
Okay.
Comes to you, I don't assume anything.
Good, because I wasn't.
This is what I really mean this genuinely. I think we've got to start planning our communities instead of with numbers, and they're important. We got to start planning them with our heart. And we got to reach out to each other and say, I got this, I got your back. You know, and I'm not saying it's not going to be controversial, and we're not going to have problems that we haven't had here at this dais here tonight and weeks to come. But we got to make the effort.
Absolutely.
And it's got to be genuine.
Absolutely. I think the first two things on the list can be accomplished within a year.
Yeah, but we got to keep in mind it's going to cost money.
So Lori, you have some dates for us. Let's get some dates written down.
Yes.
We can look at the calendars.
So it's our regular city commission scheduled dates, which is the first and the third Wednesday of each month. The next available time to go before the city commission is December 20th, and after that you have January 3rd and January 17th.
Okay, December 20th, January 3rd, January 17th?
Mm-hmm.
And December date was what?
December 20th.
20th.
We're not going to be able to have a goal-setting session by December 20th, so I would...
That's pretty tight.
I would assume we should probably look at the latest date possible.
2019.
2018, yeah.
What date was that again?
She gave us December 20th, which that's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
January 3rd, 2018, January 17th, or we can even be looking into February.
And we may want to skip the January 3rd meeting as well, because we won't.
Why?
Two reasons. One is that I believe it's mainly ceremonial for the city commission, and then two is the timing to get planning commission. You'll have one more planning commission hearing.
You mean meeting?
Meeting.
Yes.
You'll have a planning commission meeting in a couple weeks on December 11th, and then well, I'll talk to you more about it in my other communications.
I think that we should have a goal-setting session sometime in January. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Yeah.
Let's do it on that date I saw on the calendar date, December 25th.
We can do January 7th.
We can make it a goal-setting session and a potluck party.
It'd get me away from my family.
I would say also.
Just say Bob's Famous Chili or whatever it is you make, Bob.
Sorry.
You do have a couple of items scheduled for the first hearings in January, and the second hearing in January as well.
Okay.
Related to the items, I don't know that you necessarily need to do your goal setting before you go to city commission. I can talk about.
I think it would be appropriate for us to do it. That's why I'm asking them. I don't want to go to them and say. I'd like to go to them and say, this is what we've done, and these are our goals for the coming year and things we are going to be working on. I think to me, it just sounds better.
I can give you background on each of those items if you like as well.
No, we can talk about it at our goal-setting session.
Okay.
So when would you guys like to do that?
And are there certain dates we have to do that on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays?
No,
It can be any place.
I'm actually thinking maybe, why don't we meet, if we can and staff's available, let's see if we can meet maybe on December 18th.
Oh, jeez.
You're going, oh, geez?
I got a store to run around Christmas time.
It's Monday night. You're going to be open Monday night?
Probably not, but you're
Okay.
getting a week ahead of
I'll
Christmas.
feed you.
I'll have to check the availability of the chambers, if it's
So do
in.
we need to put 2 or 3 sessions, or 2 or 3 possible dates in case there are really conflicts
Well,
with somebody?
we'll take it as we go. I mean, we've not done this lately, so we're all treading on new ground, and we're gonna feel our way through it as we get there.
You mean thin ice?
I was just looking
No,
for a,
not thin ice.
for a date to do it.
That's what I'm asking you guys right now. What date do you want to do this?
Can
So
I make-
threw out something just for the hell of it.
Laura's asking.
Can I make a suggestion? Your next meeting is December 11th, which is 2 weeks from tonight. Because you've made decisions on the 2 items that were before you today, there are no items on the agenda. There's just interviews. Right now, you're scheduled for 5 interviews on that date. So perhaps we could put this on the agenda item after the interviews, and we could talk about it.
5?
No. I think we ought to go after the first of the year, brand new year, holidays are over.
And we'll
No.
know who the
And
new
heads are
commissioner
clear
is
and-
theoretically by
I
then.
think no, I disagree. I think we should get started on it, just like because of Vern. Because we're gonna spend the first talking about what we want to actually have as goals. Then we're gonna sort those down and figure out, okay, what can we accomplish?
Okay.
It's gonna be a process like a big triangle. You know, we're gonna start up here with everything in the world, and then we're gonna keep going down and down and down till we come up with 3, 5. I don't know how many we want. We haven't made that decision. I think we know each other well enough. We can feel our way through it. I mean, we'll all talk about it. We'll have a basic agenda. I think I have a lot more faith in you maybe than you have in yourselves. I know we can do this. I think we should get started sooner than later. How many times have we talked about we need to do this?
I
So
have faith in God,
I do too.
but I don't think that he would touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Well, I have faith in you. So
Just real quick,
let's
how
put,
much time do you have allotted for the interviews? Is like 20 minutes a piece, or what?
or do we have an hour for the first and we could spend the second hour doing something else?
I haven't allocated time. It's up to the commission to decide how much time you'd like. Right now, we have the whole meeting, it's just the 5 interviews, so it's
Well,
up to you
let's put-
guys.
If you guys are okay, let's put it on the agenda and see how far we can go. We'll
Okay.
do the interviews and we'll see how far we go, and then we'll
Yeah, that's what
schedule,
I was gonna
and we'll
suggest.
schedule something else because we know we're gonna need it.
So the work session is after
Yes, the interviews.
December,
No, it's gonna be on December the 11th, our regularly scheduled meeting
after the meeting, yes.
after the interviews.
Yeah, which right now is the only item on the agenda.
And just to
And we
clarify,
want you to bring your world-famous chili.
No food, I'm not getting in a food fight with anybody.
Nobody's gonna cause a food
Anyway,
fight.
let's,
Only person I think would have a food fight would be him, so.
so it's a brainstorming for
everything
the
you say.
upcoming goals
Right.
for the next year.
Yeah,
and
that's
just
good.
offhand, I would say allocate 15 minutes for each interview with a 5-minute
Was the
break in
brain-
between
When she said brainstorming, I
for
lost it.
planning purposes.
When you said you lost your brain when you said brainstorming, uh-oh.
There's enough
It
storms
does.
there already.
Okay.
Right?
We'll find one for you.
Gift
You know, it's like, who was it in the Wizard of Oz that needed to get the brain? It was the
Tin Man.
mist,
It was a Tin
the
Man.
Tin Man, yes, so we'll find you.
The lion wanted a heart.
It was the lion wanted courage, and the scarecrow wanted,
Every birthday.
You want
Christmas,
yours.
I get this.
Well, let's invite them.
I'm sure we can
Laura?
find him. Would you put your, I'm just not inclined to be having this discussion about this anymore, so if you have a question, Dan, could you please put it in writing, give it to Laura very quickly, and she'll tell us whether we need to be dealing with this or not?
What?
It says here, let Dan ask his question.
Yeah, and verbally,
So-
you wanted to ask a question.
So does it involve the thing that we just did? Okay, we already did it. The other person isn't in the room, like I said. Is it something that's pertinent? Put it, give it to, tell Laura what it is, and she will let us know. Go tell her right now.
He's declined. Let that,
Handle it
yeah.
the way I want to handle it.
I think we just went through enough agony with that.
I do have more communications if you have a moment.
I don't.
All right.
He's not going to agonize. He just.
He's not agonizing. I'm talking about us.
Okay, well.
We had that sort of sprung on us, so whatever.
Yeah. Okay, what do you got, Laura, for us, Laura?
All right, so I have a couple things on my list. The first thing is planning staff. We are finally back to our staffing levels, the normal staffing levels. Today was the first day for our new assistant planner, Carlos Calleja, and we're excited. He's going to join us for a year duration. So we have a senior planner, which is Christina, 2 planners, Pete and Kelly, and then 2 assistant planners. One is that temporary 1-year duration. Diliana Vasilieva is the permanent assistant planner, and then Carlos as well.
Why is it a temporary position?
Because of funding.
Oh, okay.
And so we want to make sure that we are, 2 reasons. One is funding. A lot of the funding for that position is coming through for grants that we've received for staff to work on the legacy project as a backfilling thing. Then also, we are very careful to not hire permanent positions if we don't know that we'll have the work and the money to support that in the long run. So that's why over the years you've seen us run on skeleton crews. This year in particular, we have had a lot of time where we had unfilled positions, and for example, we've had more pre-apps this year than we've ever had since we started keeping track in our computer system in 2003 already, and the year's not even over. So we've had a lot of record-breaking development, complicated too, which makes the volume hard. So we're excited to have a complete staff for at least a year. So that's good. And we talked about the yearly update to the City Commission. It sounds like Chair McGriff, we'll talk about our goals next time, and then you'll come back to the City Commission in January. I'll forward that along to them.
Or a later date.
Or later date.
Later date, please.
All right.
We didn't say that.
I do want to remind the commission that we're meeting on December 11th, our regularly scheduled meeting in 2 weeks. And we talked about what's going to be on that agenda. On December 12th, the day afterwards, we'll have that joint work session with the City Commission. So there's going to be a couple different work sessions going on that day. You're going to have it'll start with a joint work session with the Planning Commission and the City Commission to talk about alternate mobility targets. And then, what's that? I don't know what the time is. I think it was still set in clay, not stone, but it was on the earlier mark, I think 5 or 5:30.
Well, they generally meet at some weird time like 5:30, which is
They do.
weird.
They'll have a full agenda after that. So after that, they'll close the joint work session, and then they're going to have their own work session with the City Commission. They'll be talking about a variety of items. One of them is the lot averaging.
So we're not involved in that? The Planning Commission doesn't get to have any say in the lot averaging?
Well, not at this point.
The City Commission has asked that we attend the December 12th hearing to talk about a couple different things. One of them is lot averaging, and so they just want to know, they've also heard concerns regarding that standard, and so they want to know more about how it got created, how it's been used, and how what the possibilities are for changing it in the future.
So I noticed they don't watch our proceedings here, or at least only 2 do, so are they going to watch and see how we've discussed it?
We'll talk about it. This is just the first meeting. I suspect there may be more meetings, or if we change our code through a legislative process, you would see it in that capacity. So more
Sorry
to
to be
come.
cranky about that, but they should be watching what we're saying.
And then the last, so there's a couple of different things on that.
Can you back up just a little bit. So our only discussion with the City Commission at the work session is the alternative mobility standards.
That's what I was asking.
And I guess I'm
That is correct.
I'm trying not to feel incredulous about the fact that they do not want to have a discussion with us. It's not you to determine, but I'm just trying to say, why would they not want to have a discussion with us about lot averaging?
Since we're the ones who get it first.
They just want to understand the policy, right? They want to.
Yeah, so then let me ask you a second question is, does the city archive the videotapes from the City Commission meetings? Because I think it would behoove people to go back and look at that when you were on, I believe is when you said it was discussed, and see what, because nobody's going to remember what the intent was, but there was obviously discussion about it, and the City Commission minutes are not to a degree of specificity that you'd be able to determine that. They're pretty general.
And Renata said she was on the planning commission when it was decided. At that meeting I attended the last time, she said, well, I was there on the planning commission when we decided that.
But they did not make any statements as to what the intent was. Nobody said anything about that. So it's kind of like, well, my question is, let's go back to the tape, you know? I mean, literally, not just a funny statement, but let's go back to the tape.
Yeah.
Let's look at it or be able to have access to it so we can look at it and go, okay, this is what they were talking about.
It was the last commission meeting, only 2 people watched our tape of our conversation.
I'm talking about
I
going
know,
back.
go all the way
Yeah.
back, I know. Got to do some research.
So I'm putting
That'd be a
together,
question for Katie Riggs then.
so I'm putting together the research for that city commission agenda packet, and I've already identified all the hearing dates that we
It was
talked about.
discussed.
We adopted it, and then we amended it through time. And so I'll list all those out with a link to the online list where you can watch the videos as well. So it should all be there. I may or may not miss stuff, hopefully not, but we'll have that body of information put together for the city commission to look at. And then we present the options of like, if you move forward in this direction, here's the process for that. This direction, here's the process for that. So they understand the next steps, and then they can provide that.
Because it involves it so much, even though we're not
Well,
allowed
I
to
know,
speak.
I'm looking at this as kind of a trickle-down thing, and I think it should be a trickle-up.
And if we're not allowed to speak, are we all going to sit there to hear what they have to say and what the reasoning behind it was so we understand it for the future?
Well, that raises the issue, is when we refer things to the commission, and this is a question for Bill. It's on the record, as I understand. The findings that we establish and forward to the commission, everything that they hear is based on the record.
But they don't read it.
So
Well, then you can't
in a
ask Bill
quasi,
that question.
in a quasi-judicial matter, everything would be on the record. You know, we're talking about a legislative process, and the legislative process hasn't even started. As I understand it, what the city commission is doing some research to find out why it's there, what the policy discussion was at the time, if any, and assuming they get through that, possibly make a recommendation for some changes, and at that point, that would start the legislative process that'd work its way back to the planning
The
commission.
whole thing that triggered this thing was that last big subdivision that we
Wheeler?
So we're,
referred to, wasn't it, huh?
yeah,
I
we're
would say
separating.
It was bubbling up.
Yeah.
That brought it to a head, but it's
Yeah.
been there the whole time because
Right.
we've all asked questions about it from the beginning and said, what is this? And I mean, if I base my, if I base my
Take it off.
decision on, not decision, but if I base my thinking on what you said the intent was, then we are way off base from what you recall is that was not the intent of what has happened. So somehow or another, over time, this has evolved and it's gotten completely,
Bob, when you were asking your question just a minute ago, was that involving, should they be reading the documentation from our minutes when they have their meetings, or was that for the future?
they get it in their packet, but again.
But they don't really
Should they
read
be
it.
looking
We don't-
at our meetings prior to their meeting?
And that was what I argued about. Only 2 people had watched the tape, the mayor and one of the other commissioners, and the rest of them,
Right.
some of them hadn't even read it, what we talked about. So they had no idea.
Yeah, that's
So
just,
this-
that's a comment. That's not any, we can't make any
But
thing about
it
that.
was no one.
The city commission has heard the concern by the planning commission and by the public regarding lot averaging, and that code provision is problematic for some people. And so they wanted to learn more about it, so that's what the work session is. It is open to the public. They generally don't take testimony. I don't know if they will take testimony or not.
So I mean, you know,
So we're considered public at
if
that
we
meeting.
can't participate, then what is the point? I'm not going to sit there and not be able to participate. So what time is the work session on the 12th?
That's what she said. She isn't sure. She
Okay.
thinks it might be 5:30, but
Okay.
she'll get back to
But
us.
if it's
why
only
don't I
about
just-
mobility,
I just
why
want to
show up?
put in 5:30 just so it's blocked out, because people have a way of, compressing your schedule and saying, oh, well, you can do that, and then you don't, and then you're going crazy. So I'm just going to put 5 o'clock.
Yep, I
That
would.
just blocks it out.
There's one other issue I'd like to discuss, and
Please.
it's whether or not, and correct me if I'm wrong, do we have a chair for 1 year?
Yes.
I think that ought to be extended to 2.
No. I
Why?
think we need to have a discussion about it.
That's what I'm saying. Let's have a
I
discussion.
don't want to do it tonight.
You want to be the chair, or you don't want
I don't want to discuss it tonight.
to? Okay. Well, no, I don't. I think it's for further discussion.
Yes,
what
it
I'm
is for
saying.
further discussion.
Yeah.
I'm not prepared to discuss it tonight.
Yeah, well, to check our
I
code to
might
see
say
if
something crazy.
it's a code amendment
Well, it's
or,
10:15, you got 15 minutes more.
I got 15 minutes more to say something crazy?
To remain sane.
Okay.
and so there'll be a variety of other topics at the city commission work session. There's a lot of things on the agenda. There's an update on just the city commission side for the Willamette Falls Legacy project. And so anyway, it'll be a full meeting.
What we want to hear is he signed the agreement. That's all I care about.
We
And I
do
know
not
that
have a
hasn't happened
signature
yet.
on the joint permit application at this time.
Hasn't happened yet.
And as always, we're here to answer any questions you have.
I have a question. Can we adjourn?
We can.
What a deal.
Make it so. Do it.
What a deal.
Make it so.
Gee.
Number one.
I got your email. Nah.
See, now that we're having mind mills and he's number one, so we can, we're just going to
Yeah, I
have a
think
whole
exactly.
Star Trek theme going
We need
on
to
here.
find out if January 3rd is a ceremonial meeting or not.
It's one of my